Since becoming a mom myself, I have found these cases harder and harder to get through. I couldn't fathom being in a situation like this and doing something like this to a child. Children are innocent, and it's not their fault if we make mistakes. I'm Jaylena, and welcome to my channel. Today's case is both heartbreaking and frustrating. This is the case of Brooke Skylar Richardson. And I do want to add a trigger warning here. We will be mentioning eating disorders. Brooke Skylar Richardson was born in Carlisle, Ohio, a small town with a population of 5,000 people. Brooke was born to parents Kim and Scott Richardson, and she had a brother named Jackson. From the outside looking in, Brooke and Jackson had a pretty perfect life growing up. They were both really into sports in school. Jackson played on the football team, and Brooke was a cheerleader. In addition to being a cheerleader, Brooke was also on the student council, and she was a part of as many extracurricular activities as she could be. She was well liked, and she had a lot of friends at school. Too often, what we see on the outside of people's lives is not necessarily what their lives are like behind closed doors. Brooke was feeling the pressure of being a cheerleader, a flyer to be exact, and she took cheerleading very seriously. But because of this, it ultimately led to an eating disorder. Because of all of the pressure that Brooke was feeling like she was under, she developed bulimia, and apparently it was pretty bad. According to Brooke's parents, Brooke's eating disorder started when she was very young at 12 years old. She was already counting calories in things so small, such as the gum that she chewed. She was counting those calories. Her parents say that her eating disorder had been controlling her life at this point. There was a lot of controversy regarding Brooke's eating disorder. Some people thought that her mom had something to do with it because she herself was very into the way that she looked. And so some people thought that may have played a role in Brooke's own eating disorder. Many people questioned whether or not her parents could have done more to help Brooke with her eating disorder. Her mom states that the eating disorder was because of her being a flyer on the cheerleading squad. But some people saw it differently and came to their own conclusions. Her parents do claim that they did everything that they could to help their daughter. They had her see doctors and therapists and even nutritionists, but they claim that none of this did anything to help Brooke. Brooke was a very private person, and she didn't share much with anyone, let alone her parents. She struggled heavily with her body image, and this tended to bring her into a very dark place. She was eventually diagnosed with body dysmorphia. Brooke had a brief relationship with one of her friend's cousins named Trey, and this relationship didn't last very long. It wasn't serious, and it ended in 2016. But going into 2017, Brooke started dating somebody new. His name was Brandon, and he was a junior at her high school, and this was Brooke's first serious relationship. And she was really, really into Brandon, and this was a time in her life where she seemed like she was in a really good place. She seemed like she was in a good place mentally, and she was really happy. She was finally even gaining a little bit of weight, and her parents felt like maybe by Brooke gaining weight, it meant that she was in a healthy relationship and possibly in a healthier headspace. To them, Brooke seemed to be getting better and heading in the right direction. Because of how serious Brooke's relationship with Brandon was, her mom felt like this was a good time that she go on birth control. So on April 26th of 2017, Brooke and her mom went to her OBGYN so that she could get on birth control. While they were at the doctor's, Brooke's mom waited in the waiting room while Brooke went back to see her doctor, and when she came out, she had obviously been crying. Brooke told her mom that the reason she was crying was because she was nervous because this was her first appointment, and she was just overwhelmed, but this was a lie. The truth was Brooke was pregnant, and not only that, she would be giving birth in just 10 short weeks. Because Brooke was so far along, the doctors had a hard time figuring out the exact date that she had actually gotten pregnant. And because of that, they were actually a little off on her due date, and she was actually 36 weeks pregnant. So obviously the reason why she was looking healthier and gaining weight was because she was pregnant. While she was at the doctor, her doctor suggested that she start taking prenatal vitamins and basically said that he is there if she needs anything. But instead of taking her doctor up on this, she actually asked her doctor if she could still get that birth control prescription. She did this because she did not want her mom to know that she was pregnant. Now, I don't know what the laws are given this situation, but her doctor decided that it would be appropriate to give her the birth control prescription, knowing that she was pregnant. Knowing that she was pregnant and being that she was so young, I definitely don't think that this was probably the best thing to do in this situation, but I'm not a doctor. At this time, Brooke was 18 years old, so technically she was an adult. She did promise her doctor that she would return very soon for the prenatal care that she needed. Just a few days after learning that she was pregnant, Brooke decided that she was going to go ahead and go to prom with Brandon. She wore a skin-tight red dress that she had actually purchased in February, so she went to prom 8 months pregnant in a dress that she had bought months in advance. Not one single person at her prom, no parents, no teachers, not one person noticed that she was 8 months pregnant. After prom, Brooke continued to live her life as if nothing happened and as if she wasn't pregnant. It wouldn't be just a few months later that the police would show up on her doorstep stating that they had something to talk to Brooke about. The police took Brooke down to the police station. They began questioning her on July 14th of 2017. As you can imagine, Brooke's parents were very caught off guard and very surprised by this. They had absolutely no idea what was going on. It turns out her OGBYN called the police to inform them that Brooke had been pregnant, and apparently there were rumors spreading that she actually had the baby and she buried her baby in her backyard. As soon as the police brought Brooke into the interrogation room, she broke down and she told them everything. Brooke claims that 2 months after her initial appointment at the doctor, she did return to the doctor and she informed them that she did give birth, but that the baby was stillborn, and that is why she buried the baby in the backyard. She says that this happened on May 7th of 2017 to a baby girl. She continues to explain she had started having labor pains and contractions earlier in the day and throughout the day before giving birth to the baby girl at night in the bathroom of her house. She claims that the baby was not breathing and that she checked for a heartbeat and the baby didn't have one. She claims that she did everything that she could to try and save her baby and that nothing worked and that the baby was gone. She also claims that after this, she went to her backyard and she dug a hole, and this is where she buried her stillborn baby. She does not forget to mention several times during this interview that she did not kill her baby. So after a whole hour of questioning, the police decide to tell Brooke's parents that their daughter gave birth and buried her supposedly stillborn baby in their backyard. As you can imagine, her parents were absolutely blown away by this. All of the possibilities of why in the world their daughter has been brought into the police station, I can imagine how crazy it would be to hear that this is the reason. When the police allow Brooke's parents to see her, Brooke is having a full-on breakdown. She's crying, her parents are consoling her, and she is telling her parents, I'm sorry, mommy, I'm sorry, over and over again. Her dad says to her that she should have just told them. Brooke tells her parents that she named her baby Annabelle and that the baby did not belong to Brandon. Brooke claims that this baby belongs to her previous boyfriend that she dated before Brandon, the one that wasn't very serious. If this is true, and this is just my opinion, I feel like maybe a part of the reason why she didn't want to tell anyone about the pregnancy maybe was because she was so in love with Brandon that she was afraid of losing Brandon if anyone found out that the baby wasn't his. So while Brooke and her parents are still speaking with detectives, the police leave and they go to Brooke's house in effort to search for Brooke's baby. It didn't take very long for the police to locate the baby and take her to the pathologist. Eventually, Brooke and her parents were released and they went back home, and just a few short 6 days later, the police called and asked that Brooke come back into the police station for further questioning. This is where the story gets really weird and almost unbelievable. The police got back the report from the pathologist, and what she had to say was just insane. The pathologist tells the police that it looks like the baby was burned. While Brooke was in the interrogation room, the police inform her of the news that they had gotten back from the pathologist about the baby being burned. And at first, Brooke completely denies that she tried to burn her baby. After police apply some pressure, Brooke changes her story. She now says that she might have burned the baby's legs with a lighter, and she claims that she did this in order to try and cremate the baby. She then changes her story even further by actually changing her original story, and she claims that the baby was alive when she gave birth. She says that she heard gurgling from the baby, meaning that the baby could have been alive, and that she tried to burn the baby while it was still alive. After this confession, Brooke was then arrested for reckless homicide. She was taken to jail, but did put up a bail and was able to return home before the trial began. Brooke pled not guilty. And 2 weeks later, the case was presented to a grand jury, and she was given new charges and was now being charged with aggravated murder, meaning that she could get life in prison. She was also charged with involuntary manslaughter, endangering children, and abuse of a corpse. With these new charges, Brooke was arrested again and then taken back to jail, and her parents once again bailed her out. They claim that there is no way that Brooke could have done this to a baby and that the baby was stillborn. Once the internet caught wind of this case, people went wild with the rumors. They flew. People were even protesting outside of the courthouse for justice for the baby, as well as protesting outside of Brooke's home. And to add fuel to an already decent-sized fire, a new report comes out that another pathologist is claiming that the baby was not actually burned and that there were no signs of burning. Also claiming that the initial report was incorrect. Brooke's defense takes this information and they run with it. They claim that Brooke was forced into a false confession. When Brooke was being interrogated at first, she did say, "No, I didn't burn the baby." And it was actually the police who had suggested that maybe she was trying to cremate the baby, which eventually, over time, she does admit to. And remember how she said that the baby was gurgling? That happens to also have been suggested to her from an officer. And she says she just went along with that. This is what the defense is claiming happened after the new report came out from the other pathologist. And it very well could make sense, given that the new report states that there was no burning whatsoever on the baby. The prosecution was unfazed by this new report, and they stuck to their guns, claiming that Brooke did in fact admit to burning the baby regardless of what the new report says. Brooke was then placed on house arrest. She says that she spent a lot of her free time reading books, and that she did plan on going to college at the University of Cincinnati, but obviously those plans have changed and her plans were put on hold. And in July of 2019, the state reached out to Brooke's lawyers with a deal. They told her lawyers that they would take off the aggravated murder charge if she agreed to plead guilty for all of the other charges. Brooke says that she is not going to take the deal because she is not going to plead guilty for something that she did not do. Brooke's trial started in September of 2019, and the biggest hurdle the prosecution faced was knowing that there was no physical evidence to prove that Brooke's baby was born alive. The only evidence that the prosecution had was Brooke's confession, which in her confession, she did state that she heard the baby gurgling, but she is claiming she was coerced into saying that. The prosecution also points out that 11 days before Brooke actually gave birth, she did go to the doctor, and according to the doctor, the baby's heartbeat was strong and healthy. It also comes out that Brooke did in fact take the birth control pills that she got from her doctor, which could have interfered with her pregnancy, because she did go from a healthy pregnancy to a stillborn pregnancy allegedly within those 11 days. People speculated and the rumors were running rampant. She definitely didn't seem like she wanted to keep this baby. She kept the baby a secret. She wasn't preparing. And like I said earlier, I feel like maybe she was afraid of losing Brandon because the baby wasn't his. There's also the fact that the father that she claims the baby does belong to was such a brief and short, not serious relationship that might be something that she feels ashamed about and would be embarrassed for people to know, especially her parents and especially her boyfriend Brandon. Given the fact that she knew she was pregnant and only her and her doctor knew, and she didn't have any type of plan of what to do, seems like she waited up until the very last minute to make a decision on what she was going to do in her situation. Being a mom myself, or just being older and not being in that type of situation of being young and in high school and not being your current boyfriend, I can only understand her situation so much. But what baffles me and concerns me, in my personal opinion, is that if she planned on going through with this pregnancy, she should have had some type of plan. Whether she was going to tell her parents or tell her doctor or something, but she did nothing. She had the baby. She claimed the baby was stillborn, and she buried the baby in the backyard, and she still didn't tell anyone. That being said, Brooke was Googling how to get rid of a baby. She did not want to keep this baby. And unfortunately for her, by the time she found out that she was pregnant, she was too far along to get an abortion. The prosecution used this information to argue that Brooke did everything in her power to disrupt this pregnancy. They claimed that her mother was so vain and so into her image that she put so much pressure on Brooke and her family to look like the perfect family. They go on to claim that the doctor's office accidentally emailed her mom the results of Brooke's positive pregnancy tests, meaning Brooke's mom knew about the pregnancy. And apparently Brooke's mom texted her asking her about the email, but Brooke convinced her mom that the email must have been a mistake. But there are claims that Brooke's mom actually threatened her that those emails better not be true or her life would be over. Now, there are some text exchanges between Brooke and her mom that are at the very least questionable. Brooke would often text her mom about how she felt terrible and about how she was so afraid she wouldn't fit into her prom dress. And even on the night that the baby was born, she texted her mom about how her belly was finally back. Those text messages between Brooke and her mom just fueled everyone who believed that Brooke's mom knew that she was pregnant and helped her conceal her pregnancy. After Brooke had given birth, there was one text that she sent to her mom stating that she lost 20 pounds, and her mom's response was, "I could cry, you are literally my hero," which does nothing to further help her mom's case. Further backing everything that I said about her mom being vain and putting a lot of pressure on both of her kids to be perfect. Going as far as to help her daughter lose weight by the use of laxatives, which can be very dangerous, especially to someone who apparently has an eating disorder, and also pressuring her to work out every day. The night after Brooke apparently gave birth, she texted her boyfriend Brandon and told him that last night was like the worst ever. But she felt so much better and that she was finally happy. So some might wonder if Brandon also knew about the pregnancy. During her trial, the pathologist actually took the stand and talked about how they originally thought that the baby was burned, but after doing another report, that she realized that there were no burns on the baby, which is really odd and really confusing. They also claim that there was no evidence that Brooke killed the baby or that the baby was born alive. I do want to note here that the baby had been buried for 2 months. It was really hard for them to get any physical evidence. The defense goes on to claim that Brooke never cut an umbilical cord, stating that it could have been disconnected during pregnancy, and that could have been why the baby was stillborn. They say that Brooke described the baby as being white and pale, describing a typical stillborn baby. They go on to say that Brooke only gained about 15 pounds during the course of her entire pregnancy, which is extremely unhealthy, meaning that she still had a full-on eating disorder throughout her entire pregnancy, meaning that the malnutrition that she was giving her baby could have also led to her baby being stillborn. On September 12th of 2019, the jury announced that they found Brooke not guilty on almost all charges, but they did find her guilty of abuse of a corpse because of the fact that she buried her baby, which is a felony charge, and she could get up to about a year in prison. The next day, Brooke was brought in and she was given 3 years of probation for her charge of abuse of a corpse. As of December 2022, Brooke is now working for her lawyer's father and son team. And local reports state that she intends to study law. Probably just like a lot of you, I am both floored and not at all surprised by this outcome. Brooke was a high school cheerleader. She was popular, she was thin, she was blonde, and she was white. And she was obviously privileged. As far as Brooke's case goes, I am curious to hear from all of you what your thoughts are on this case. So don't forget to leave a comment down below. Don't forget to hit subscribe on your way out and make sure that you hit the notification bell so you don't miss a case. If you have any case requests, please leave them in the comment section below, and I will see you guys on the next video.